Hey, what's up, viewers? Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Magic Land's Big Dark Room here. We've got a fantastic guest lined up for you today. We've got Howie Rivet in the chair. We're going to be talking to him all about his upcoming events, what he's done in the past, how he got into DJing and throwing events, all that and more. All right, let's get into the interview. So, Howie, thank you so much for joining us here on Magic Land's Big Dark Room. Hope everything's been going good this brand new year. You know, we're still kind of crazy coming at the tail end of 2021. You've been doing a lot of really crazy events over in here in Worcester, and you did a burlesque show, you did a synthwave night, you do an emo night.
Techno night.
Yeah, techno night.
Yeah.
You've got a ton of stuff kind of going on.
Well, one of the complaints I've been having about Worcester, there's nothing happening. And then I just figured out, be the change you want to be and just start doing events. I like techno. I know techno DJs. Hey, you guys want to play? And the answer is going to usually be yes.
Pretty straightforward.
Then the second question is going to be where? Worcester. Then it's going to be, oh. But then they play, they have fun, and they come back.
Right.
We got a growing little scene. It's different for each one. The synthwave scene is not too big in Worcester at all, but the techno scene, people come out of the woodwork for it, and that's a lot of fun. Were you there for the last Terminator?
Yes, I was. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
The big compliment I got that night was people walking up to me and saying, dude, you brought us to Berlin, or I felt like I'm in Prague again.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you had your friend Alex Zahn, who I've had episodes of the Audio Spectrum back in the day, who's fantastic techno DJ. Mm-hmm. And he certainly is someone who's well versed in techno because he's been to Berlin a few times and kind of immersed himself over there.
He made it into Berghain.
Oh, that's right. He has made it into Bernheim. Granted, he speaks German, so it probably makes it a little bit easier for him to kind of get his way into that place. But yes, so you have him on the roster, and you got another...
Brian Blacknoise. He goes by Morris Black.
Morris Black, yes. That was quite something. It was the type of synthwave / techno. He had a Backstreet... Was it a Backstreet Boys or an NSYNC remix?
It was Backstreet Boys. And I was going to play that song, and he beat me to it. We didn't even know that we both bought that song.
I thought that was one of his own remixes, because he
does a lot of remixes. He does have a Bandcamp that's pretty popular. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
He's got a very nice, cool, bassy, techno, industrial sound.
Right. And with those events kind of going on, kind of dived right into it a little bit here. You have been part of sort of the New England BDSM / fetish scene for a while. You are wearing something I kind of noticed, the thing.
Not today, Jesus.
Yeah, you were part of that whole thing with the Satanic Church, right?
Well, I broke up from so you have the Satanic Temple and the Satanic Church.
Yeah.
The Satanic Temple's out of Salem. Great guys. The Satanic Church kind of got annoying after a while. Mm. It was really awesome when I was rebellious at 18. Then you realize there's a whole bunch of people cosplaying the devil in red capes and thinking they're cooler than they actually are. Met some great people in it. Some great friends for life. But yeah, it's an interesting group of people.
I actually did meet the gentleman who runs, is it the church or the temple? The one in Salem. I've met him. He's a very interesting guy. I saw his documentary, which was really good. Why is that name completely eluding me right now for the name of his documentary?
I can't remember it either.
I do remember, though, it was basically he was trying to have Baphomet statue right next to the Ten Commandments, which was at the front of a state house somewhere down south.
Right. That's how he started the Satanic Temple.
Yeah.
He started more of a political statement.
Yeah.
The Satanic Church started in the 60s out of the alt-religion, new wave religion movement.
Right. Richard Crowley and things like that? Or?
Yeah, and you also had Anton Xandar LaVey, who was the official founder of it. And they kind of latched onto lots of the mysticism of the era and just turned that into its own little cult and kind of just went from there.
Right. Those subcultures and the way that you have been part of those subcultures, for a certain amount of time, has that really kind of like really approached the way your philosophy for putting together events and DJing? Does that all kind of coexist? Because you're also a big fan of science fiction.
Oh, God, yes.
So, I mean, like books like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Dune, Neuromancer. People love.
One of my USB drives for today is actually named Wintermute.
Okay.
From Neuromancer. Yeah, that's kind of like the whole sci-fi thing kind of got me into like the electronic music. Well, it didn't get me into it. They just kind of, they just coexist with each other. Lots of sci-fi movies and TVs, they've always had like an electronic or a synthwave based soundtrack for it. So you have that little thing going on for it. I think Doctor Who was the first show to have a fully electronic composed theme song. So you look at stuff like that and how that translates stuff. The electronic music itself has themes that allude to science fiction.
Right. So like the whole thing with the fetish scene, I've experienced a lot of that stuff too as well. Going to like Cinematic in Boston and things like that. And you've actually played there too as well. I mean, I believe so at Cinematic.
Oh my God.
And Ex Mortis and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, does that same philosophy and the ideas from, like I mentioned, those subcultures, do those really influence the way that you DJ and how you put on events?
Those events, they do. Like Cinematic was a fetish event. Ex Mortis is a goth event. So like goth is kind of like where I grew up. That's my teens. That's like the music I grew up loving, and I'll listen to my car like when I'm feeling, nostalgic. And so I just love my goth clubs. So I'll go out to goth club and I'll spend, traditional goth set, get a couple drinks in me, and all of a sudden you're hearing, Starboy from The Weeknd and stuff like that. And the goths love it. Like aesthetically, it's goth. Musically, it's very open.
Yeah.
That's why it's Cinematic. I would play everything from old school goth music to trap to electro house to big room ADM music. They would go crazy over like Martin Garrix and stuff like that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
The goth community doesn't have that because they're a music-based subculture based off of the 80s post-punk movement.
That's a interesting way of putting it. Sort of that differentiation between both of those subcultures. That's the thing with like, the kink scene is it's a mishmash of a lot of different people, and they're coming in for what that subculture brings, which is their kinks.
Right.
Not so much the music. So it's like...
Yeah. And the goths come to that because aesthetically the kink scene has given a lot to the goth scene.
Right.
So lots of goth people go to fetish clubs thinking it's going to be another goth club.
I mean, when did you actually kind of started getting involved within that scene? How long ago was that?
So my first goth club was when I was 21, was at a gay bar in Washington, D.C. And I don't know if you all seen The Crow.
Yeah.
But they got the goth club scene in there, and there's like people hanging from the ceiling with welding torches and grinders, and they're cutting, and there's spikes, and it's just insane. And I show up to this bar on a Thursday night, and I'm greeted by a whole bunch of drag queens. You got to walk down these narrow little stairs, and there's like 15 goth kids just kind of sadly stomping next to each other.
Was it what you were expecting?
Not what I was expecting at all. But then once I got 21, I went to another goth club. Now it's in San Francisco. It's called Death Guild. And that one was, at the time, Manhattan Lounge, downstairs in the cellar of a big building in the financial district. And it felt like a catacomb. It was a Monday night, but there was like 400 people in there.
Wow.
And it was just fun. So they got me. And then I found out there was another club called Bondage A Go-Go. And everybody that went to Death Guild went to Bondage A Go-Go. I thought it was a goth club, and that's when I realized it wasn't. And that's how I got introduced to the actual kink scene.
Wow, that is interesting. Wow, and that was all based in San Francisco?
That was based in San Francisco.
Was that before or after you lived in El Paso in Texas?
Born and raised in San Francisco till freshman year of high school. My mom retired, moved to El Paso, Texas. I hated it because it was so suburban. Joined the Army to get out of El Paso. Get sent back to El Paso with the Army because it's got a big military base there.
Oh, no, man.
Get out the Army. Moved back to San Francisco. I spent 11 years of my adult life out there. So,
wow,
14 years as a kid and then 11 as an adult.
So it has a kind of a big impact in you in that way.
Yeah.
You know, because I know you do mention sometimes that you're like always looking for warmer weather.
I hate this. This snow is bullshit. Yeah, last night I was upset. I go out to clear out the driveway. My snowblower died.
Oh, no.
I was able to fix it. Good thing of being a diesel mechanic by trade.
Yep, no, that's good. That's very good. What are some of your earliest experience with electronic music? I mean, was it during that time period when you were kind of going back and forth in the Army and things like that?
No, so like, honestly, my early experiences with electronic music, and it's going to sound kind of silly, quinceañeras. I grew up in a Latin family. So like every weekend you got somebody's quinceañera or some sort of party like that, somebody's first communion or their christening or what. So there's a party hall rented out and it's got a DJ. And I remember freestyle becoming a thing around a time that I can remember going to these events when I was old enough to remember. So you figure probably like 10, 11. Mm-hmm. And just going, and you have this cool music that's like this heavy bass, and it's like synthy, and it's choppy, and you have like a cool robot voice, and then talking about lasers, and also you hear like a pew, 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 and they're like, and it's just like, it's silly. Like I listen to this stuff like now, and it's kind of silly, and just so iconic of the 80s. But being a little kid, I was like, this is so cool. Robot music.
Robot music. Well, speaking of robot, I think somewhere I read that when you were a kid, you either wanted to be Robocop or a vampire.
Both.
So you wanted to be a Robocop vampire?
There's stages.
Okay.
My pops was a big fan of the classic horror movies.
Yeah.
So we grew up watching lots of the old black and white horror movies on the weekend. And I went to a very, very conservative, very right-wing evangelical Pentecostal school. Not because my parents were religious, but because I had less of a chance of getting murdered there than in the San Francisco Public School District. Because it was pretty bad in the 80s in San Francisco. What I was told and what I remember was kindergarten, they're asking everybody, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I want to be a minister. I want to be a missionary, a doctor, a scientist. They get to me, Bela Lugosi the vampire. Well, that was the first of many times that the administrators and teachers came to home to worry about my soul and talk to my parents about my salvation. Let's just say I didn't last too long in Pentecostal school.
Oh, wow. Is that when you went over to Balboa High School?
Yeah. Actually, I did that. Then I went to Aptos Middle School. Then it was Balboa.
With that school, we did in terms of like getting into music and things like that too as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was like a big diverse group of kids.
San Francisco had a really cool like music program. Yeah. It had orchestra. It had band. It had other musical options. And I went into orchestra when I was young, and I took the upright bass.
Oh, no way.
And I was in a jazz band for a while. And then we moved to Texas, and they were like, we got marching band. You're going to support our football team. That's all we care about in Texas is high school football. That just kind of went out because I was not going to play a flute. Just not. All right.
Right.
Aqualung is not that cool.
Aqualung. No. That's, what's it called?
Jethro Tull.
Jethro Tull, I was about to say.
The rock flute.
The rock flute. When you were living in San Francisco, you did manage to work at the very famous DNA Lounge. How was your experience working there?
Being a security manager for an alternative lifestyle nightclub in San Francisco, and by alternative lifestyle, I don't mean like everywhere else where it means a gay bar. I mean, it was for alternative lifestyle. Monday night was a goth night, which was a regular. But you get to the weekends and you could show up and it's a clown party.
Wow.
Like we would have like 500, 600,000 people inside dressed as clowns and carnival crew just getting down to breakbeats. For some reason, the carnies love breakbeats. And
it kind of makes sense. I mean, if you listen to like circus music, it does kind of have that whimsical sort of upbeat vibe to it.
But they would throw this like weird like Burning Man like kick to it, so that was like dark breaks and stuff like that. Evil breaks, that's what they used to call it.
Evil breaks.
Evil breaks.
Okay.
We had gay nights, straight nights, techno nights. Asian mobster nights.
Asian mobster night. Okay. And what's the time frame for this?
That was from about 2003 to 2010.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good chunk of time, man. What's something that you remember that stood out in your memory for that night, for that working at that club?
There's a couple quick memories. One of them when I first started like working in like the live music industry.
Yeah.
Before that, I always had this idea that you go backstage and it's gonna be this crazy, wild Motley Crue party.
Yeah.
I've come to the conclusion there's like 2 bands in all those years that ever had like even just a party in the back. Half the time you go back there, it's your heroes talking about what school they're sending their kids to. Not them partying and like the way you would expect them to be.
Right. Anyone worth mentioning in that conversation?
A couple of guys from Green Day.
Oh, okay.
We're having a conversation with Mike Ness about it.
They totally would think that they would be the kind of guys who would be kind of like partying it up just a little bit backstage.
Yeah, and the thing about DNA is also kind of cool. You'd get lots of, I think I'm famous people.
Those are the worst.
Those are the worst because if you got to tell somebody you're famous, you're not famous.
Yeah.
And I remember this one person was like, you don't know who I am. I'm internet famous. And this is before like influencers and Instagram. So like, no, you're not internet famous. You have a blog somewhere and that's about it. We don't care about your little spiel. And he's talking about it. He's like, you'll never get anybody big like me in this club again. I'm like, as he's saying that, Quentin Tarantino is walking out of the club, shaking like security's hand and just leaving. Like, Rob Schneider used to own this club. We're fine.
Yeah, we're totally good. I can't imagine like being part of something like that for that extended part of time.
That's where I learned by watching a lot of promoters. You get lots of these promoters that would just fail, and they would fail horrifically. Why? Because they would just get a couple DJs together or a band and just, here we go, I got an event. If you notice, like, where I throw my events at, I completely change the lighting in the venue for the night. I bring in my own sound system. I change the atmosphere. I'm selling a night. I'm selling an escape for an evening.
Absolutely.
And those were the nights that I always saw were successful. You would have some nights that were, they would have a killer DJ lineup that would bring people for one night. And then the club would fail like 2-3 months later because they weren't giving people an escape. They weren't giving them something different. Because people can go to the same building every weekend and it's different for them.
Being outside of the norm in that way, giving people an experience is the biggest thing. It's really something to do and have fun with because it's always keeping you on your toes. And let's say someone who's a regular to going to your nights, you're always kind of throwing in for a loop. It's like, ooh, I can't wait for what Howie's going to come in next, you know?
Yeah, I've thrown people for lots of loops, especially, you know, like doing electronic venue stuff at an iconic punk rock bar. People are not expecting that because I'll tell people, yeah, I'm going to do something else. They're like, well, what do you mean? Like, only punk bands play there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm doing something. People come in and are like, holy shit, this works really well. It gives it an underground feel. It's something different. It's not a normal ultra lounge.
Right. You want something exciting and be able to capture people in that way. That's one thing that Daniel and I want to do for people when we put on events, is have that ability for us to really transform you into a completely different world. And being with your science fiction, your love for science fiction, it was the whole point of all that stuff. Putting you somewhere that you never would have thought of or seen.
Like my synthwave night, like I even named it after like a quote from Blade Runner, Offworld, because of the Offworld colonies.
Yeah. That was great. I love that.
I named my techno night Terminator because it gives a little feel of that like dark, edgy grittiness, and that gives us a little bit more option to play more stuff in there.
Absolutely.
Like Dave DK, he comes from like the hardcore rave scene.
Yeah.
You know.
Why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about sort of the differences here? I mean, did you go into any of the like club scene and stuff like that in El Paso? What like?
Yeah, because I was like 18 in El Paso.
Yeah.
When the army sent me back to it. So El Paso is on the border, and with that you get a cool like mixture of the Mexican culture and the American culture, and it gets a weird blend in there. Like when you go to the raves in Mexico, we used to party in Mexico on the weekends. You go to the raves out there, and it wasn't just electronic music.
Yeah, they had probably a lot of like
You would be out there listening to like, Josh Wink. And also the next song is like Bulls on Parade by, Rage Against the Machine. And just like, what? But it worked. People wouldn't stop dancing. They would just keep going. And it was just a really cool vibe. It was just like a little bit more open.
And they probably played a lot of traditional, local Mexican music probably sometimes too, maybe.
More like mainstream pop music, like Selena, like the Tejano.
Right, yeah. Okay.
And that would be in there, but it wouldn't be in there too much. It was more like American music, European.
Very interesting. Wow.
And if you ever get a chance to get a DJ gig in Mexico, it's worth it.
Oh, I nowadays I see some of the videos and the stuff on Instagram from various parties, stuff on YouTube, like a lot of the big name like techno artists and stuff go down to Mexico City, and the production value is through the roof.
Oh yeah,
they're amazing. They're absolutely stunning.
I remember I got like this was just right over the border. It was a like 45-minute drive for me from my home to get to the club venue.
Wow.
And they put me up in a hotel for the night. They paid. And it was a small venue. I want to say it was probably about like a 800-person cap venue. And next thing you know, I look up and they're like, all right, we got your hotel for you. It's across the street. Go in and I got a hot tub in my hotel. I got a little open mini bar.
Right.
Anything I wanted kind of night. I'm like, oh, I need to do this more often. Here in America, I'm lucky if I get $25 some nights.
It definitely must have been really interesting trying to, going from one culture to another in that way and seeing sort of the parallels with that. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you too, is like, through your years of experience doing this, what are some of the differences that you have seen between like San Francisco and Texas, and especially here in Massachusetts, New England?
I'll go from California to Massachusetts because it's easier.
Yeah.
Texas is its own little thing.
Right.
They don't really have like an underground scene out there. They do, but it's like in Austin. It's very small. It's very vibrant, but it's kind of isolated to like the Austin area. The rest of it is mainly like, just run-of-the-mill nightclub that you can find in any city, anywhere in the country. Insert DJ playing top 40 here. Bay Area, Los Angeles, and the East Coast, I noticed a big difference is Burning Man. Burning Man influences the music culture of the West Coast because every DJ out there goes out and plays at Burning Man.
Really?
It's a couple-hour drive. You can get, and you got your friends, you got people in the camps and stuff like that. You can go out there with only buying a ticket and survive for like the whole event. Especially if you're DJing. That Burning Man sound really permeates into the general sound out there of the club scene. Whereas out here, it's been isolated from that, and you have a smaller burn called Firefly.
Yeah.
And what I notice, the big thing out there, the DJs that play out there a lot, are drum and bass DJs. And that's kind of has like a big thing out here. So that's why on the East Coast, I was able to find lots of drum and bass, lots of breaks and stuff like that, like Thursday nights at the Phoenix Landing. It's the oldest running drum and bass night in the world.
Yeah, it's one of the consecutively
running.
Yeah, in one place. Yeah, Elements. It's been there for over 20-something years.
Yeah, Lenore does a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a personal fan of drum and bass. It gets a little too repetitious for me real quickly. But I appreciate the talent that she has and that she hires and pulls through that venue. Like, some incredible performers. I just love watching how technical they are, how they get their sound, and it's just a fun night.
It is a fun night. It is a good night, and it's a very close-knit community of people that go in there.
So, Elements was my first electronic music night in Boston.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was my first week out here. I stopped at a bar just because I was driving my local, and it was Coochie Coochie. And I talked to the bartender. She was a bartender in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
We started talking, and then she's like, "Yeah, you'd probably like this place. It's Elements at the Phoenix Landing." So I'm like, "All right, go hop on a cab, get there." And I'm like, "Oh shit, this kind of makes me feel like I'm back at home."
Going to that night, especially the Phoenix Landing itself, that club has always been this staple for dance music in New England and in Boston. I mean, because I do remember they not only was Elements a big staple there, but the house night that they used to have, which
I
was
think it's
on
still going on.
Sundays.
Oh, Sundays.
It was on Sundays, but now it's on Wednesdays, and they've always had some really amazing acts come in through there, you know. And that's one thing that I like about your events too, is that
No chairs.
no chairs. You know, hey, you want to sit down? I mean, there might be some seats at the bar.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, you really cultivate this whole thing where it's surrounded by the music, and that's where it really stands.
So my influence is, if you look at the old original staples of house music and techno, you look inside those places, they were nothing. They were junky buildings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like, hey, let's slap a sound system in this abandoned building. It used to be a warehouse. Now we're going to throw it as a nightclub. Tresor in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Tresor means vault. The club is literally the old money vault for a department store. That's why if you look at the DJ booth, he's set up behind bars.
Yeah.
Because that's where they used to keep the money at. That's where the transaction would be.
It's pretty crazy. Speaking on that, it's like with the variety of tastes of music that you have and all the different genres of music, is there that you've listened to, do you think that there's like a type of like music that's really being missed here in New England? That's not being celebrated as much that you would hope that it would be?
The industrial scene has lots of incredible artists coming out.
Mm-hmm.
The industrial scene was kind of imploding on itself for a while. I want to say 2003 to about 2015.
Mm-hmm.
It all started becoming very repetitious and what we just call Cookie Monster robot voice.
Cookie Monster robot.
Yeah, it's just like this heavily vocoded voice, and it's like, all right, you're talking about some stupid sci-fi thing. Yeah, I get it. But you have some of these new like groups coming out, like Three Teeth, that have a nice, like that old traditional like 909 beats, and they have like it feels new again. It feels great. If you like techno, darker like house stuff, like progressive house, you really like lots of these new industrial acts coming out. They have that same feel to them. In fact, industrial is kind of one of the origins of techno, and it's kind of going backwards on that. Techno is starting to re-influence industrial again.
So you recently bought like an all-in-one, like brand new DJ Pioneer system. Looks dope as shit. It was really cool.
The XDJ XZ.
You've been DJing for a long time, since like the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. And you've seen the technology progress. I mean, nowadays the access of DJing and the bar of entry is really kind of low. Do you think that people who are starting off, like young people nowadays who are starting off DJing, do you think they should go with a little bit more of a traditional setup? Or like, how do you think they should approach it with the new technology in that way?
So there's two ways to look at this. What does the DJ want to do? Now, if they want to be like a nightclub DJ, I'm going to recommend that they use something that has the same format that nightclubs are going to have. That's why Pioneer is the industry standard. You get that Pioneer system I have, any DJ that has DJ'd any nightclub in the world will know how to use that system within 30 seconds. You won't have to give them an explanation. Mm-hmm. You have people use like a small little controller because that's all they can afford is a $100 controller. That has all the functions that mine does.
Yeah.
It may not sound as good on a big system, but functional wise, it'll get the person to learn the foundations of DJing. Heck, if they use just the software only, that might be their entry into it. You know, I know a lot of DJs, their introduction to DJing was downloading a hacked copy of Virtual DJ, and then kind of messing around with that, saying, oh, I like this, and next thing you know, they're playing to clubs of 1,000 people on a regular basis.
So either way, it just like doesn't kind of matter in some sense, just the goal is the same.
The end goal is the same. Like, in my day job industry, we've always had this saying, it's not the tools that make the mechanic. You'll have these guys that have $100,000 invested in Snap-on tools, but they can't fix anything.
Yeah, they don't have that experience to go on.
Right, or the mentality.
Yeah.
But a person that starts off with a cheap like Hercules console, that'll teach them how to use a jog wheel. That'll teach them how to use a crossfader, how to use upfaders, EQ, and that's the foundation. And then what happens is once they get to something nice, like a Pioneer or even some of the upscale Denon stuff, and they feel that quality, like how much more precise it is, that'll just up their game. Because if they can be decently precise with a cheap, crappy system,
right? Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean.
They should be better on that.
It gives you that perspective, and I think that's really the biggest thing right here too. Is like what perspective are you coming at with this? What do you want? What's your objective with it too, as well, with rocking a crowd? Because I've seen wedding DJs who don't mix like on beat kill it. I mean, they rock a dance floor.
I have seen people try to mix or have like great technical skill, but their music selection for a crowd is terrible. I've seen people on stage literally just throwing songs into an iTunes playlist, and iTunes just going one song at a time, rock a dance floor and rock a crowd. So it really depends more on your programming than your technical expertise anyway.
Right, exactly. You certainly have really good programming with your music. I mean, I remember you playing the Halloween night, and you had people going pretty good for that, and you were playing a huge variety of stuff. It was a good time. You played Ministry. Like, I was just like, damn, this is freaking fantastic.
When I first started DJing, I had this philosophy, and it was kind of told to me, play music that you enjoy, that you believe everybody else will enjoy. And that kind of helped guide where I go musically. Because I like a lot of really weird shit, and I mean weird that nobody else will ever like. Experimental stuff. I'm not gonna play that at a club.
I've heard some of it too. I mean, I remember one night you and I were going back and forth YouTubing music, and you were playing like Chicano rockabilly. I'd love to see you put something down like that on a dance floor and see how people react.
I think the accordion would scare people away.
It's a big staple in Mexican mariachi music.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I mean, and that's primarily where your family's from, right?
Yeah, in Guatemala, Mexico. Yeah, if I get woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning with accordion music, it's usually a bad day or my birthday.
Why is it such a bad day? Why?
Because I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. and to accordion polka music. No.
Who would do that? Your mom?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
And then there's a song in Spanish called Las Mañanitas, and it's like a traditional birthday song. And it starts with an accordion, and they always wake you up with it at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and get you. I got a big breakfast for you. You're like, I'm not even awake. I hate today. Leave me alone. Like,
buenos dias.
Yeah. Everybody else is excited for you, and you're just like, give me 20 more minutes of sleep.
When you are out there and you're performing and you're DJing, you're honing in on all these influences. What is it that you see yourself in the future with this music, with DJing? How do you see the scene progressing?
That's kind of like a double-edged sword because the scenes evolve and die and new ones are born. I've been in the scene for 24 years now, 25. And with that, I've seen scenes where it was like the same group of people every single weekend going strong for years, and all of a sudden everybody's got married, they've changed, they've gotten older, so they don't like the loud music anymore. And then a new scene comes in and takes that scene, and sometimes it's the exact same scene, it's the same club venues, the same music, but a different set of people. So it's kind of interesting like to look at it because it's hard to tell of what it's going to be. Do I see electronic music getting even more popular? Yes. 2010 is when I want to say kind of proved that, when EDM really took off into the mainstream, when Electric Daisy Carnival became a household term.
Yeah.
That opened up a floodgate to lots of new producers, lots of new artists that are making new stuff, new styles of music.
Yeah.
And it's going to be kind of cool seeing what the next big thing is. Because stuff just like pops up, flares out, disappears.
Thinking about, we talking about the future of the music and things like that. What about the future of you? You have a lot of stuff coming up. One thing that I think is really interesting is you're doing a GoFundMe for a community PA system. What's the whole thought behind that whole community PA system?
So I have a PA system at home.
Yeah.
And that PA system has been put through the ringer. But lots of the events I think has been, fundraisers for friends that have passed away, fundraisers for somebody who needs medical cost. And I'm always giving out the service for the PA for free. Because it'd be a jerk move to not do that. And we are all one small tribe. Let's help each other. But I'm at the point where I'll be setting up fundraisers for certain causes. Like I got one coming up, I want to say it's on 18th of February. That is Operation Lifesaver. It's a night we're going to donate 100% of funds. DJs are volunteering, staff is volunteering. I'm volunteering the PA system for it. And all funds goes to help treat veterans with PTSD and that are suicidal and that have traumatic brain injuries. So
wow, that's a very good charity. Yeah, that is.
But then we got some other events that are about to be released. One is for a youth LGBTQ youth in crisis center where they provide free houses. You can walk in, grab a free meal. They give you free mental health care and stuff like that. We'll be doing like a small little street fair for that in Worcester, small little outdoor like party and stuff like that. Again, donating the PA system and stuff like that. If anybody that works with sound and stuff like that knows is running this stuff for free, you do a lot of wear and tear on the system.
Yeah.
And it's expensive replacing stuff.
It is.
And so, yeah, that's why I'm running the GoFundMe to help me just continue what I've been doing for years. Because it's financially hard.
It is. It's a lot of money. I mean, the maintenance of this equipment is kind of costly, repairs and then obviously the replacements of a lot of these things. Not a lot of people are quite aware of that, I can't wait to go and do your next event. Wait to go to your next event.
It's coming up.
All right, man. Thanks
all right,
again.
bro. Thank you.
Have a good one.